fam. Happy Friday, July 30th. It's a long weekend. Congrats on making it here. Hopefully you had a decent week and are going to have an even better long weekend. Let's take a look at the story for today and how to make it actionable. I think the very clear thing that's top of mind for a lot of people, especially coming into the weekend, COVID. And COVID in Alberta has been a gong show. Dr. Deena Hinshaw has exposed herself to be just a terrible human being who's happy to send people to their death. Jason Kenney has taken advantage of that. And there's protests around the province right now, led by doctors who are not going to be taking this anymore. It is fantastic. You love to see it. We just had the Alberta Federation of Labor announce that they will be supporting future protests. So this is a good thing. Go down to these in Alberta. You're going to have a good time. Let's just get that off the, take a look at it from the start here. So they're going to be marching again tomorrow at noon, July 31st, Edmonton at the Legislature, Calgary at McDougall Center. And then they've also announced today that they're going to be doing this every day. So obviously take an eye on social media just to make sure that it's kind of confirmed. But we have it, most of it's being coordinated by Joe Vipond, a doctor. So just take a look at his Twitter, which is JVPondMD, and he'll always have some information there because they're going to be doing this every day. And it's a really impactful way to say we're not going to put up with this bullshit anymore. This matters to the rest of Canada because first of all, we're already traveling in between provinces, especially from someone in BC. We see Albertans come through all the time. And this is important because it was announced today with COVID, the Delta variant, even if you're fully vaxxed, you're still transmitting that motherfucker. And it is going to be a very dangerous time. We need to be very careful in terms of wearing masks. We always want to be safe in public spaces, wear masks on public transit, wear masks in schools, make sure you're getting tested. And the reason people are so concerned and protesting in Alberta is the Alberta government said, no, those things aren't real. We're not going to do that. They've said specifically, you will no longer be required to isolate if you test positive for COVID-19. Isolation hotels and quarantine hotels will no longer be available. Testing will be available for symptomatic people only when needed to help direct patient care decisions. After August 31st, testing for COVID will be available only for patients whose symptoms are severe enough to need care in hospitals or physicians' clinics. Masking will not be required in schools. Masks will no longer be required in public transit and in most continuing care facilities. Dr. Nija Bakshi, who has worked on the COVID unit in Edmonton's Royal Alexandra Hotel through the pandemic, says she's worried the changes will have terrible results. The medical community is being completely gaslit right now, she says. The idea that in 2 weeks' time we can just be done with this when we know we're not is so irresponsible. Bakshi says she believes abandoning testing, isolating, and contact tracing will lead to preventable deaths. And that's the issue here. It's not preventable deaths, it's murder. And we need to start calling this murder. They are killing us. They're happy to send us to our deaths. The working class, the people on the front lines, we are going to die over this. And they know by announcing this, people are going to die. Every one of these deaths should be announced as a murder. We should start taking this seriously if we care about our society. What is the benefit to ending this early? It is purely economical, and it is purely supporting the 1%. It is only supporting the wealthiest in society. An overwhelming number of the small businesses, the poor mom and pop shops, they're gone. Amazon, other corporations have already taken over those spaces. So many doors have been shuttered forever. We as a society have so much work to do once COVID is over to fight back, to be stronger than we were before. It does not start with sending so many people to their deaths. It is absolutely disgusting this is happening. So with that said, credit to Dr. Joe Vipond. He's an ER physician and co-founder of Masks for Canada, an advocacy group, and he's calling on Dr. Deena Hinshaw, Alberta's chief medical officer, to resign. Like everybody, I wanted to believe that Dr. Hinshaw had our best interests at heart, he says, but if you sign your name on a document that says, I'm going to expose every Albertan, including all of our children, to unknown risks, I'm afraid she needs to resign. I don't know what else. Well, we'll take a look at some of his comments too, because he's established himself to be a good guy and a good player, but it's clear that he's also not like your typical leftist. Doctors aren't typically left; they're typically right wing. You have a certain level of prestige and status and privilege, and that doesn't typically lend oneself to being in support of justice and freedom for all. So let's take a look at his comments here.
I want to negotiate a return to sane public health policy. I'm happy to take questions. And some outright lies. How can I trust my government? You know what it's like? It's like when you're a kid. It's like when you're a kid and you're growing up and every adult is awesome and your parents are infallible, and suddenly you start realizing that, you know what? Parents sometimes make mistakes. and adults sometimes do bad things. And I'm feeling that way about our institutions. Like, I've gone through my whole life, hey, I'm in a safe liberal democracy. Hey, I'm safe. Hey, my government cares about me. And all of a sudden, it's like the floor is dropped out from under me, and I'm weightless falling.
And that's the thing, and I think is so powerful, is you have someone of such privilege, and he is coordinating these actions against institutions. His concern is, hey, I lived in a liberal democracy, which I thought meant I was safe. So you have these people, even at the upper echelons, who are now questioning power, are questioning the structures that exist purely to serve the 1%. This is our opportunity to really make a dent and to really make our voices heard. I think the clear step to take is, if you live in Alberta, please go to these protests. Please just go and wear masks, be safe, keep your distance. But you'll probably meet a lot of allies there and a lot of people who are interested in bettering our society. Again, this is going to be at noon every day for the foreseeable future. Edmonton at the Legislature, Calgary at the McDougall Centre, and I'm sure as the Alberta Federation of Labour is getting involved, there'll be more locations to be announced soon. But this is such a good opportunity to speak to people about your life is literally being put at risk. For what purpose? People are asking you to die. For what purpose? People are asking your kid to die. For what purpose? That's going to immediately evoke a lot of emotion. And part of this too that I've really respected is they've told the NDP to stay out. So they had several NDP MLAs who've been on hand, but they've been asked not to take the mics because this isn't a political event. And we'll get into a different conversation in the future about how everything is political. But the NDP, they supported the Stampede. They supported a lot of things that have put people at risk. So the NDP should be ashamed. They are just another mechanism within the system that serves the 1%. So definitely, I support that and I appreciate that. We'll also take a quick listen here from SOS Alberta. They help coordinate schools and the education system in Alberta. And the Alberta government has been so terrible and has not provided transparency or consistent, trustworthy information. So SOS Alberta has stepped into that gap and has given information to parents because we're stronger together. And united, we're stronger. So by sharing that information and getting people together, working, sharing information they hear from their neighbors, sharing documents, letters, things like that. They've been such a good and valuable resource. So also check them out if you're in Alberta. Let's take a listen to what they're concerned about.
A lot of the public schools have already removed and shifted their online learning to a more permanent option. So some of them are scrambling. They are very, very concerned that there is going to be no protections for their kids as we're in a moment of change and transition with this variant.
What do you want to say to government, to Inshaw, to the Premier, to Chang?
I would like to say, listen to science, look at leaders in our world and in our community, and listen to our doctors. There's not just one doctor. There is several doctors that need to be consulted, and we are looking to them now for leadership that we're not finding in our current government. A lot of the public schools.
And that's the thing is. A lot of people thought living in a liberal democracy, we already take the best practices. We take the established solutions from the experts and implement them quicker than anybody could. A lot of us I've been saying for a while that they don't give a fuck about the best solutions. They don't care about best practices or serving the people. It's always been in service to making the wealthier wealthier. And so one of the things that people can kind of are trying to wrap their head around is, why aren't we doing what's being done in other countries? Why haven't we locked down China, Vietnam? They've delivered food supplies to people to make sure that everybody's taken care of, both in terms of their health, but also being given supplies, and it helps their mental health, not having to worry about where all this stuff is coming from. The West has not taken up a lot of the best practices being conducted in other countries, and the reason for that's pretty transparent. They only care about protecting the capital of the richest class. And if you go back to the very beginning, let's not forget there was a vaccine that was being established before COVID even became a real threat. The current vaccines are primarily based, from my understanding, on existing vaccines and research that was done, and that kind of helped to boost the research. But all of that research stopped a long time ago because there wasn't money in it. There wasn't money being paid to the investors, and the dividends weren't coming back to the shareholders. So they decided they were just going to roll up their research. I think it was just in 2017 they could have had a vaccines to the current strains that would have taken a lot of the pressure and saved so many lives. But the reason they didn't, and let's see if we can find the number here, asked them to provide, for weeks, huts have been developed reaching out to pharmaceutical companies and federal scientific agencies and even the Medical Research Council in the United Kingdom, asking them to provide the roughly 3 million needed to begin testing the vaccine safety in humans, but none have done so. So just a simple little story. For only $3 million, we may have been able to have prevented the COVID pandemic. But this whole thing would have happened regardless, because it is very clear that capital has continued to be amassed and hoarded by the richest individuals. And as they continue to take the dominant share of the capital, the escalations, the problems, the fights, and the fascism will continue to escalate. And they will continue to take our wealth that we produce through our labor at a rapid pace that will only grow quicker. So I think this is a good place to leave it. It is a risk to Albertans. Their safety is our safety, because they're going to be traveling around the country. People will be traveling into Alberta. For whatever reason, it's going to continue regardless. And we know that if they're not safe, none of us are safe. So we need to support these. I'll take a look at what's going on in Alberta, find the people, find the voices on social media who are promoting and boosting these protests, and try to give them support if you can yourself. If you're in Alberta, please go. It's every noon, every day for the foreseeable future. Edmonton at the Legislator, Calgary at the McDougall Centre. Wear a mask, keep your distance. It is tough right now, and it's so stressful, but when you see things like this, rich old white guys putting on big events to protest the system, to fight against the establishment, and you have labor joining within days, it shows that people really are waking to the fact that while billionaires are shooting themselves into space with our money, we're not going to take it anymore, and we're going to step up. And yes, the face of it may be the government that people are opposing, but as more people are waking to the fact how deeply they've been betrayed, I think that we can draw those lines for them and help convincing them to fight the bigger fight. Come over to socialism. Come over to fighting for full and just liberation for all people for the rest of time. We'll see. Maybe that's too aspirational. I don't know. Either way, have yourself a fantastic weekend. City Love and Solidarity. Peace.
Marching across the fields where a million fascists died, you're bound to lose. You fascists